Yes, good evening from Amsterdam and good morning from all the way to.
San Diego, California.
Yes, it is. And welcome to episode 51, A Rendezvous with the Present Moment. It's a new chapter, episode 51. So I'm so happy that my special guest today could make it because she's a very, very busy woman. Um, we live in an era of consumerism, and to be able to cut through the noise in order to get our message to our intended audience, we need to approach this in a smart way. And when I say we, I mean people that have something to say and they want to elevate the world with their products and services. Whether you are an executive in a corporation, or you are a writer, you are a doctor, you are an entrepreneur, you want to prepare a town hall presentation, write a book or a webinar, or whatever it is, you are here today for a treat. And there is so much information out there, and it's still there is room for extra information. So today's episode is about creating an enjoyable experience, so that people become more confident about their ability to create and deliver great content to their audience. As we know, in these times, many people migrated their business online, but whatever if it's online or offline, we need to create compelling content to get our audience hooked, so that they consume our content and experience the benefits of our products. So today, let's talk about how to create compelling content, grab your audience, and never let them go, with a very, very special guest who is, in my view, the queen of elegant and effective communication. Has a great mind, a golden heart, and a great sense of humor, great dancer. Vicki St. George has been involved in personal development for more than 30 years, should I say.
Yes, you can.
Um, she has been a ghostwriter, editor, and author coach for more than 25 years, and she specializes in helping people to bring their message to the world with power, with passion and purpose, most often in the form of a best-selling book. And she's a master trainer for Robbins Research International, a very cool woman and a great dancer as well. Welcome, welcome, Vicki. All the way, yeah, from San Diego.
My great pleasure. Thank you.
By the way, what's a great thing that you about San Diego? What do you love about San Diego?
Oh my goodness. So many different things, but probably the main thing is I can have the door to my apartment open pretty much all year round, and the glorious weather allows you to celebrate life.
Oh,
That's my
that's
favorite
beautiful.
thing about San Diego.
And you don't have too many differences in temperature in during the year. That
Oh,
sounds nice.
we sit right around 70 degrees Fahrenheit most of the year. So sorry, the rest of the world.
Yeah. Okay. You keep inspiring us. So before we dive into the whats and the whys and the hows, I have to share something with you. So while contemplating our interaction of today, a thought came into my mind. And it's about my father, who passed away 10 years ago. So my father was a very smart, funny, very well read, and knowledgeable man.
Mhm.
Um, and we had very interesting discussions always with him. And my mom would always say to him, Eddie, you should write that book. You should write a book because you know so much. Unfortunately, he passed away and he never wrote his book, his legacy. So my question to you is, why should we go to over whatever stops us and write that book, even even though there is so much out there? And why should we approach this process strategically?
Well, actually, I work with a lot of people who are kind of in the same vein, and I'm sure that you've encountered them as well. People who have brilliance to share, and for whatever reason they, it's not a priority for them. And if it's not a priority for them, then I usually try and convince them not to, because sharing content, it's one thing to have brilliant ideas, but the most important thing is that there's a driving reason, a driving why to
Yeah.
share with somebody. And I think that that's one thing that you exhibit, that you've got things you want to share with the world, and because you've got that driving passion, then that's going to push you past any barriers that might happen. So if someone's kind of in that gray zone of, I want to write a book, or I want to create an online course, whatever it is, I usually say, look, this either has to become something that is so compelling for you that you will do anything in order to make it happen, or else put it on the back burner, because
Yeah.
it's not gonna come to fruition. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't make it a must. In fact, we'll talk about that a little bit later. But it really needs to have that drive for you, and there are easy ways to create that drive. Does that answer your
Awesome.
question?
It is. And it gives me some peace, to be honest. It
Good.
gives me peace. Awesome. So before we get to this, to dive in, we have a tradition here. And we center, because I see this as a sacred experience that you and I create for us and for everybody who is watching. So let's close our eyes. It's about a minute or less. So let's center and close our eyes. And just connect to our breath. Just observing the inflow and outflow of our breath while occupying a position of strength. And I'm going to offer a mantra on the in-breath to tell in our mind, breathing in, everything changes. Breathing out, nothing stays the same. Breathing in, embracing the experience. Breathing out, letting go. So let's rock and roll. So, Vicki, why is this important? If we have a message that you were just saying, if you have that burning desire and you know that you have something useful that will elevate your world and impact people and organization, why is it important to approach this process strategically and systematically if you want to bring your product, services, your message out there?
Well, two reasons. First of all, if you don't have a system, then you're never really going to be able to create, for the most part. The old image of the frenzied creator that sits down and magically pours out Shakespeare's plays or Dickens or poetry, whatever. For the majority of people, and even for them, is pretty much a myth. So it's vital that people do have a systematic way to approach creating the content that they want to share with people, and also have a systematic approach to then sharing that content. The other reason that it's vital that they have a system is because they need to stand out amidst all of the noise that is out there now. I started doing research for this particular session about a month ago, and I was pretty well horrified with what I found. And I think that we all have this experience of how cluttered both our online spaces, our media spaces, even our own brains are. It's one of the nice things that the starting with a centering exercise is really good for, kind of clearing the screen a little bit so that we can be present. But the the amount of content that was posted online that was created by individual consumers rather than by corporations actually crossed a line of what's called infinite content more than 10 years ago in 2009.
Oh, really?
There was more content that was being created by individuals than there was by companies. And that's 11 years ago. And I think that all of us have seen that now when we go online, is that there's so many different individual creators that are producing content. It's almost impossible to really be seen and heard within that, within that space. Then you lay on top of that the fact that there are algorithms on Facebook that are or on Google or any other search engine you see that are filtering content before we ever see it, and we're adding AI to that now. It's it's totally crazy.
And it doesn't filter the content necessarily on the quality of the content, right?
No. It's all based around algorithms, artificial intelligence, keywords. We'll talk a little bit about that. So it's becoming such a crowded space. And I think that all of us have the experience of content fatigue.
Absolutely, it's over consumerism.
Yeah, you open up your email and you've got 100 emails, and 25 of them, 50 of them are from from stuff maybe you subscribe to, maybe you haven't. The average click-through rate today for an email is 21%.
Yeah.
That's the number of emails that get opened, and then to click on a link from that is less than 3%.
3%.
Less than 3%. And, if you move then to the Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn, all of those are looking at about a 3% response rate, a 3% engagement rate, meaning that somebody reads it and comments on it. So it's just, there's so much.
So just writing something of high quality, it's not enough. Of course, it's essential.
Yes,
but it's yes, absolutely, but by far not enough. And by the way, you get regards from James McCulloch, Susie Mitchell, Rich Waterman, Linda Kelly, Seth Jones, Maria Adam, everybody's Becky Blake. Very happy to have you here. So it starts also with writing quality. And by the way, because this will go also on LinkedIn afterwards, there are many of my clients that are high executives. So we are not talking only about writers writing a book. You might have a town hall presentation, you might be an entrepreneur, a speaker that has to prepare a keynote presentation. What you are going to share, it goes to everybody. It's going to help everybody.
I would argue that even if you are going into a meeting or a Zoom call or a coaching session, whatever it is, you need to put on that content creator's hat. And I like to say that there are 4 different things that are involved in creating great content.
Yes,
the first thing is that the content has to be pertinent to the people that you're talking to. And what that means is it needs to solve something that is a problem for them or fulfill a desire that is present in the moment for them. And if it's not, then you need to kind of use your content to trigger that. The second thing is that it's got to be personal. They have to feel like it's being directly addressed to them. And, there's a lot of talk online nowadays about authenticity and the need to be authentic. This is a component of that whole feeling that it's personal. The third thing is that the content needs to be emotionally engaging.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of, I work with people who write nonfiction books, what's called prescriptive nonfiction, which is how to, which can mean everything from real estate to medicine to personal development to business to communication. It's a huge field. It's critical, even in what could be considered dry content. It has to be emotionally
Yes.
engaging. It has to trigger the emotions. You have to, you have to have your emotions triggered if you're, on camera one-on-one, but it also, you need to use language and metaphor to emotionally engage people. And then
Yeah.
the last thing is that, whether it's a phone call, whether it's a Zoom call, whether it's a meeting, or it's a 45-minute keynote speech, a book, a blog post, you need to think of it as taking people on a journey. So
Aha.
that it's a journey that starts one place, it ends up at another place, and at the end, people are satisfied. There's a feeling that, yes, that
Yeah.
had value to it.
Uplifting. So it's
Yeah, uplifting. It can be disturbing as well,
yeah.
because the journey doesn't necessarily need to be, oh my gosh, this is wonderful, because sometimes your content needs to poke the bear.
Yeah.
It needs to help people go, this is a problem, we need to do something with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, does that make sense?
Absolutely. And to get into the how do we get over the, well, writer's block, but if we are not a writer, so the deliverer's block, how do we get into it?
Okay, well, when I teach content creation, one of the things that I talk about is the first thing you need to do is you need to prepare yourself. It starts with you, and the first thing is to make sure that you are in the right emotional state. I have a terrible confession to make, and that is that I don't like writing all that well. And yet I've written more than 25 books. Not under my name. I think all but one of them have been ghostwritten. But it is not my favorite process. I have to say, it's not something that I do easily. It's a
Aha.
skill, but it's not something that is, I'm not that creator that sits down at the computer and it's like, oh my God, I feel so good to be writing. That ain't me. I have
And
to
you're
get my
so good at it.
well, thank you. But I have to get myself in the right emotional state.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
usually for me, that has to do with envisioning the reader on the other end. But it
Yeah.
also has to do with any other content that I create. You need to be in the emotional state that this has meaning for you.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. The second thing is that all of us have a way that we are most creative or most productive. And so this can start with the environment that you create. Some people, they have to have music in the background. Some people, they can't have anything. Some people, they want to sit in their favorite chair. Some people, they need to write and they need to talk it out. And so they've got a recorder and they're pacing. I mean, whatever it is, you
Yeah.
need to figure out what works for you. Creativity, God bless it, is unique to each person. So
Yes.
figure out what works.
Yeah.
This can include the time of day as well.
Absolutely. We have
You know,
different rhythms, right?
different rhythms. When are you most creative, Catalina?
In the morning when I wake up,
Mhm.
it flows. And I have
Beautiful.
also in the evening. There
Mhm.
are some days when in the evening as well, but in
Beautiful.
between,
In
no. So
between, you need, yeah.
yeah. So I do more things that are easier when I need to create. It's in the morning for me, especially.
Beautiful. And that's vital that, I mean, it doesn't matter when, but it's vital that you know when your creative times are so that you can tap into what your natural rhythm
Yes,
is.
absolutely.
The other thing is that, for most people, block time is critical with creativity.
Yeah.
And everybody's got a different block. I read once a long time ago, a writer called this knowing what your sandbox is.
Uh-huh.
That everybody's got a sandbox, which is their maximum time for being creative. For some people, it can be as short as 10 minutes. For some people, it can be as long as an hour and a half, whatever
Absolutely.
it is, but figure out kind of what that time zone is for you and utilize that. Rather than fighting against it, utilize that, and that'll help you. Kind of on the backside of that is to make sure that you do take breaks.
Breaks, absolutely.
You
Yes.
know,
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
a lot of people, I mean, sometimes you can get into flow and then, forget it. You kind of go with what you got. But
Yeah.
for most people, you need that energetic break. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm a tea drinker. And so my
Yeah.
break is usually when I'm writing or working on something, and my body just goes, okay, that's it. It's like, okay, time for another cup of tea. I'll go to the kitchen, make myself a cup of tea, and then come back, and I'm revitalized.
Yeah, I look at my kids now. They have the whole week exams, and they keep
Mm.
learning. And then I said, "You need breaks. You need breaks. Your
Mhm.
brain needs break. It
Mhm.
needs a break. Otherwise, you cannot be creative."
Exactly. And then just the last piece on this
Yes.
is I call it the ABC of creating, and that is always be capturing.
Yeah, I love
Always
this.
be
I love this. Oh,
capturing.
ABC.
ABC, always be capturing. Most
Always.
people have, let's see, there we go. Most people have a phone of some kind, and all phones these days have some kind of a recording device.
Yes.
This is an enormous friend for you because you never know when that idea is going to pop in your head, and
Uh-huh.
they will vanish with the wind. So you want to capture it and then, get it transcribed or go back and listen to it and use it, because the brain is an incredible thing. Creativity is amazing. You never know when it's going to show up. You need to worship at the altar of creativity to
Yeah.
make
Do you
sure that
get
it keeps
ideas?
showing
Do you
up.
get ideas at night? Do you
I
get
get
ideas?
ideas I get
Do you
ideas in
have
the
something
shower.
next to your? Sure. Okay.
I get
Okay.
ideas in the shower. I can occasionally get them in bed, but very rarely. But it's in the shower. It's walking to the kitchen to get the cup of tea. It's oftentimes. I mean, I was taking a shower this morning. It was kind of like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I need to do this with this content. It's
Yeah.
that's why breaks are so important. It gives your
And do
brain.
you capture them immediately? You have
Uh,
something like a notebook or something with you?
no, but usually I will get there as quickly as I can so that I can go.
Okay.
Now, what the heck was that? Oh, okay, that's what that idea was.
Okay. So we
Mhm.
get over so we prepare ourselves.
Prepare ourselves.
What's next? What's
Next
next?
is really to figure out, it's going back to journalism. It's figuring out the who, the what, the where, the why and the where. The who, the
Yeah.
what, the why, and the where.
Yeah.
And the first thing is the who, because you need to know who your audience is. You need to know who you're writing for. And energetically, once you know that, it's really, really powerful.
Yeah.
One of my dearest friends in the world is a woman named Brandon Bays, who wrote a book called The Journey, which many of you may or
Love
may
it.
not know.
I
It's a
love it.
great book.
I had
And go ahead.
a seminar with her.
Oh
Awesome.
yeah, she's amazing. As I say, my probably my oldest and dearest friend, my longest time dearest friend. We don't talk about old anymore, but I remember when she was writing her book. This was in the late 1990s, and
Yeah.
she would talk about writing this book for the woman in the pink fuzzy slippers. And she had a picture of this woman in her mind who was sitting in a chair by a fireplace. She was wearing pink fuzzy slippers, and she could see this woman opening up her book and reading the book.
Oh,
So that you need to know who the people are that you're writing for. Now, I talk in other seminars about kind of figuring out who your target audience is, which is the official term, but then expanding it out from there. But for any content creator, it is crucial that you know who you're writing for. You know what's important to them. You
yeah.
know what their challenges are, and that you're emotionally connected to them, which a lot of content creators don't really talk about. But I think having that emotional contact to be able to put yourself into their shoes is huge.
So get out from the ivory tower.
Exactly. So that you can really
That's
step into where they are. Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
So
That's the new world.
yeah, exactly. And it'll change the way that you write your content too, or you
Yeah.
create your content. So that's the who. The second thing is what, and that's really figuring out what you want this particular piece of content to do.
Yeah.
What the result is that you want to create. I mean, this could be everything from getting them to sign up for your email list to really touch their heart, to intrigue them, to introduce yourself, to persuade them, to talk about your business. But whatever it is, you
Yeah.
need to know what it is you want this content to do, so that
Yeah.
that becomes the driver for the creation of it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the third thing is the why, which really goes into why is this what you're sharing? Why is this going to be important to that other person?
Yeah.
If you can describe that, and oftentimes I'll suggest writing it down, but if you can describe it for yourself and get really, again, connected to why this piece of content now,
Yeah.
what is it going to do for them? How are they going to show up at the end of it? I mean, if we're going back to Brandon in her book, she saw the woman closing the book and just having her face and her body transformed by what she had seen, and that was a huge driver for Brandon. And so we need to have that same why as to why we're doing this.
Yeah.
You know?
Which my father didn't.
Yes,
So that's
exactly.
important. That's so important,
Yeah,
to have
it's
like
really critical, and it's even more than why. It's why now,
why
because
now?
the for many of us, I mean, I've got projects of my own that are sitting on a back burner because I don't have a why now for them yet, and and that's fine because I've got other things that I have a stronger why now for,
Yeah.
called
And,
deadlines.
and do you forgive yourself for leaving those, saying no to them now in order to say yes to some other things that are more
Yeah,
important to you?
well, of
Because I
course you
think
have.
it's important. You have
Yes, you
to.
have to. Yeah, you have to. Life is a balance.
Yeah.
I have on my computer as one of my screensavers the quote from Coach Bear Bryant talking about what you exchange. I have to. Today is a unique day. I have to do my best because I want to remember the price that I paid for this day. And
Ah,
so it's really, we need to prioritize, but we also do need to remember that to make that why of that project that's sitting on the back burner, to make it a why now,
yeah.
and not to just keep postponing it.
Awesome.
So,
So the
yeah.
who, what, why.
Uh-huh. And then the last piece is the where. And this has to do with both platform and format. All
Ay,
right.
ay, ay.
And there's a gazillion platforms. If you consider, a meeting a platform, if you consider a conversation a platform, there's so many different places where content is today. And based on the platform you choose, then you choose the format that's going to be best for that content, whether it's a keynote speech, a tweet, a book, an article, a LinkedIn post, as you were saying, whatever it is, you need to decide what your platform is and your format is. But here's the key.
Yeah.
For so many of us, again, it's like infinite content. There are infinite numbers of ways to get the stuff out there. But
Uh-huh.
you need to take a look at it from the perspective of who's your audience? Why do they need it? And then based on that, and what do you want to do? And then based on that, okay, now let me take a look at what platform's going to be best for that and what format's going to be best at that. And the
Yeah.
nice thing is that for most of us, when it comes to creating our content, we can choose one or two platforms
Yeah.
and get good at them,
Yeah.
and then move on to the next.
Yeah.
I also work with do some work with Brendan Burchard.
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to ask if there is any role model that you can mention that is good at it.
Yeah, Brendan's amazing at it, and I've known Brendan for 10, 11 years now, which is remarkable. And when he first started out, he focused on books and
Uh-huh.
seminars.
Yeah.
Those were the two things that he was really, really working, and keynote speeches. So his two vehicles for content were books and live speaking. He got really, really good at those. And
Uh-huh.
then once he'd gotten good at those, then he started moving over into other platforms. He built
Platforms. Yeah.
his online business with online seminars. And then he added a podcast to that. Then he added Facebook and Instagram that supported the podcast. He added a blog, but he got good at where he was first and then expanded from there. And that's one of the reasons why he's so successful
Yeah,
as
he is.
a personal development influencer.
Yes.
And he's a great guy. So great heart.
Oh, yes, absolutely,
So
absolutely.
yeah. So once you've got your, once you figured out your who, your why, your what, and you've got your, and then you can step into, okay, what's your where, and then just it's really a question of learning, learning and trying stuff, and lots and lots of engagement with readers and with watchers and that kind of stuff, and lots of trying stuff that doesn't work and then trying other things.
Yes. So
you know
try it, and then, yeah, if it doesn't work, just do something else, right?
yeah, exactly. You have to really just give it a shot.
So you were talking about customers, or audience journey, content
Mhm,
journey. Can
mhm.
you expand on this? I'm curious.
Yes. Well, when you're creating content, no matter what it is, there's some basic key pieces that are great to have in the back of your mind. Even if you're, whether it's a Zoom call, a meeting, or whether it's a short form content like a blog post, a Facebook post, or if it gets into longer formats, which can be a keynote, a seminar, a book, whatever it is, you really have to start and cover some basic pieces.
Yeah.
And many of these kinds of things you can find in lots and lots of great information out there about content. I actually, my background is not only in writing, as you said, but also in presenting content from stage.
Oh, yeah.
And and so it's important, no matter where you are, just to remember this audience journey. And if you hit some of the basic pieces, you can really help them go along with you. The first piece, and again, if you've done any content, it's called the hook, which is a term that really means something that's going to intrigue people right off the bat.
Attention catcher.
Yes, attention catcher, intriguer, something that is going to grab their eyeballs. If we're in this great mass of content creation, it's more important than ever that you have to grab people.
Yeah.
It can be anything that is, it should trigger interest, intrigue, emotion. It can piss people off,
Yeah.
because that again will intrigue people and get them to come into what's going on. But ideally, when you're creating your hook, you again need to put yourself in your audience's shoes
Shoes.
and think
Absolutely.
about it from their perspective. What is it that is bothering them? What do they desire? What is it that's really going to grab them? Not something that's going to be of massive interest to you. So it's one of my favorite things is to create hooks.
That's
I love Hooks R Us, creating
we
hooks
know.
for
Yeah,
people,
yeah, yeah,
and it can be a lot of fun. And I always say that you should create 3 hooks for every single piece of content, because you try one, and if it doesn't work, try another one.
Uh-huh.
you know so once you've gotten somebody to open the email, once you've gotten somebody to start reading the blog post, the next thing that you need to do is you need to let them see 3 things. First of all, they need to see that you understand them. And that's when you're talking about, okay, what do they want? Brendan talks a lot about in his content about people are aspirational.
Yes.
So oftentimes you can start with something that is a picture of them at their best, or a question that gets them involved, that lets them see, oh wow, I would love to be able to do that. But then after that, you need to touch in on what's preventing them. What's the wound that's around this? What's the problem that they've been facing?
Yeah.
I also like to, in that circumstance, it's personal to them, but if you can make it something bigger, it's even better. So if
Yeah.
you can tie, you have this, have you ever wanted to, create really, really powerful and impactful, information that would grab people, and you could see people getting transformed by what you have to say. But maybe you've tried in the past and there's just been a disconnect. I mean, people haven't been, they haven't been liking your
Responsive. Yeah.
stuff. They haven't been commenting. Your email open rates suck, or you're talking to somebody and you can just see that they're not with you, and you've got something great to share, and it's actually something that might be able to help them do better in their business, or better with their family, or better with their health,
Yeah.
but it's just not quite there. So you expand it outside of just their own personal needs to something that's a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
And this creates that beginning of a relationship. And once you've got that, then you need to position yourself as someone who is capable of helping them solve the problem.
Yeah.
But it's usually from the perspective of me too.
Yeah.
It's not I'm so great. It's I've been exactly where you're
In
sitting.
your, yes,
Yes, me
your
too.
shoes.
I tried to run email campaigns, and nobody was responding. Or I put up this great post that I was so excited about with content. And I went on Facebook. It's like, oh dear God,
Yeah.
2 likes. All right. Um, you want to
And
show
these are
that
my
there's
family.
Yes, exactly. And I've been where you've been, and
Yeah.
that's why I really focused in on creating something that would help me do better, that would help me create content that would grab people. And so I found the answer. This is the place where you say, I've been where you are, I've done the journey, I now have the solution
Yes.
you know and then once you've done that, you want to set up a little bit, you want to go back again to creating what in personal development terms is called leverage,
Yes.
because you've got to get them off of the dime. Oftentimes people just don't have enough leverage on themselves to make a difference. So
Yes.
you can ask questions about, if you don't figure out a way to make your content dynamic, how is that going to affect the expansion of your business? I mean, how much money have you put into online courses where you thought that you were going to learn how to develop content, only not to do it? How much have you
Yes.
wasted? How much time have you wasted in, putting this
And
off? Yeah, exactly. And how great will it feel the next time you go to your email open rate and you see, a 50% open rate, and more important, people are writing you and saying, you changed my life. You
yes.
transformed my business.
Yeah.
So you set up the emotion around, I've got to do this right now, you know? So
Yes.
that's the second piece. And then after that, you need to kind of shake them up a little bit, because all of us have these wonderful little ways that we feel of doing things that are right. And you have to shake them up, because until that's shaken, they're not going to be able to be willing to be open to a new solution. So you can set up, and again, I'm going to Brendan, because I love the way he handles some content creation. He talks about it being old world, new world, meaning that this is the way things used to be. It used to be that with content creation, it was really easy. You had your email list, and you just went out to your email list, and it was awesome, and they would buy from you and that kind of stuff. That's not the way things are
Yeah.
today. Everything is just completely, jammed up, and people are less likely to respond. In the new world, what's critical is that your content grabs them, and it shakes them like this, and makes them so eager to respond to you that it then becomes easy for you to connect with them and to offer the solution that will help them transform.
Beautiful.
So you just need to make sure that is there to show them that there's an opening for them to do something new. Okay.
Wonderful.
So that once you've done that, once you
Yes.
set up the old and new, and you've got some, emotional leverage on them, then at that point, that's when you reveal your solution, and your solution, this is, kind of your core. But one of the tricks that I loved about this, I'm a content creation geek, so I do a lot of research, is that if you can figure out a way to have steps, stages, lists within your content, it gives people a sense of progression.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to make progress. And so even just that small thing in creating your content can make a huge difference to take people along with you as you're going. The other thing is to use stories and metaphors, because your content solution, remember I was saying about my nonfiction authors, it needs to have emotion to it. So every piece of content should have some kind of a story that's attached to it, or a metaphor that's attached to it, so that it makes it personal for people. Now, here's something that's really, really important. It's very easy in creating content when it's personal. It's very easy for content to become an I fest, meaning that it's, I did this, I saw this,
Oh my
I
God.
was
Oh my
coaching
God.
somebody, this, and after
Center of the universe.
yes, exactly. And how does it feel when you hear people telling all of
Give
this?
me a break. Give me a break.
Well, the other thing is that people then will do two things. One, it can alienate them just because it's like, oh my God, what an egotist. The second thing it can do is it can create a disconnect, meaning she can do it, but I can't.
Yeah.
And so if you're using stories of other people, it gives them a chance to say, me too, maybe I can do that as well.
Yeah.
You know, that makes a huge, huge difference. And the last piece about content is that I do a lot of what's called cross mapping when I create content, which is it's my term for saying, give them something that they already know, and then put your solution, link your solution
To
to
that. Yeah,
that.
that's smart. That's smart.
You know,
Yes. Yeah.
so if it's writing a book, you know, most people would say, yeah, I can't imagine writing a book. It's this huge big crazy project. It's kind of like, okay, great. Have you ever made dinner? You know, have you ever followed a recipe? Okay,
Yes.
if you followed a recipe, book writing is kind of like that. You know, you have all of your ingredients, which you have to assemble. And then once you assemble the ingredients, and sometimes you may not have all the ingredients, and so you figure out something, you have substitutes. Sometimes you have to substitute stuff. But once you've got that, then it's just a question of following the recipe, following the steps, putting the ingredients in, and then doing the work to create the recipe, so that at the end of it, you have this finished dish that's absolutely beautiful. Book writing is pretty much about the same thing.
Right.
But you see how that can make things graspable.
Easier for, absolutely.
Much more
It makes
graspable.
sense.
Yep.
Wonderful.
Exactly. How we doing? How we doing on time?
It's fine. It's our show, so
Okay,
we go for it.
two
So
more things.
do we? Yes. Yeah. Do we edit while we're writing? Do we edit while we're writing?
Never.
Okay. Tell us.
I've heard it described that the creation process and the editing process are like they are two completely different sides of the brain.
Yeah.
If you impose the editing side of the brain too early, it can cut off the creative process completely. Yeah. So it's far better just to keep on writing, keep on creating, keep on talking, keep on however you're creating. Just do that. And then I usually recommend that you take a break even before you go back to what you've created, because the emotion that you have connected to it, you don't want to have that emotion when you look at it with a little bit more of an objective eye, which is what editing is. So you never do that. And ideally, even after you've edited it a couple of times, I usually say get somebody else in to read it, or to watch it, or to do whatever, because you need that even more objective eye to ask the questions that you perhaps won't ask for yourself.
So you are the dreamer. You cannot be the realistic and the critic in the same time, right?
Not at the same
No,
moment. No,
no. So
no.
how do we deal with feedback?
How do you
When
deal with feedback?
yeah, feedback comes from people, and then your baby is completely it's not the wonderful peace that will change the world. Oh my God.
Yeah, I love feedback, and feedback loves me.
Me.
Um, okay. There's a difference between the emotional response to feedback and the intellectual response to feedback.
Yeah.
Um, to this day, 25 years after starting to write professionally, when I get revisions back from an author or an agent, that kind of stuff, there's a part of me that goes, what do you mean? It's not perfect. And I can get my knickers in a twist, to use my British friend's expression. But I recognize that that's just an emotional reaction.
Yeah.
And so, I let that aside. And then I look at it as like, first of all, feedback is an opinion.
Yes.
That's number one. And everybody's entitled to their opinion. Okay. Secondly, I read the feedback with the idea that, can this help me make this content better?
Yeah.
And that's the question that's always running in my mind. Can I use this feedback to make this content better?
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that I have to either agree with the content or the feedback, or agree with it, or acknowledge that it's valid. Because
Yeah.
sometimes someone can say something that's completely and totally off the wall, and it's like, are you crazy? But then if I take that as a signal, I need to look at this particular piece. Maybe I take it in a different direction that makes it better, because
Yeah.
it's always about making it better. And also because if this person that's giving feedback is the person I'm writing this for,
Yeah.
then I'd better take that feedback seriously.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the third piece.
And kind of have the head of a growth mindset, right?
Oh yeah,
Because
always.
otherwise we cannot create wonderful high quality things,
Well,
right?
hopefully every content journey is a journey of growth for the people that are creating it, as well as the people that are, um, that are absorbing it.
Yeah.
It's really, really critical.
By the way, I'm moving up, but I see that people love the cross mapping example. Me too. Me too. By the way, I just love it. And then I have a very smart woman, a Romanian originally. She lives in Brazil, mathematician. She really likes you a lot, and yeah, she really likes the principles, and so that is impressing.
Good.
Thank you, Liliana.
Thank
Mulțumesc,
you.
Liliana.
Thank you. Thank
Okay,
you.
so we've done it. We edit it, right? And then
Hmm.
what do we do?
Um, it then becomes an ongoing process. Um, as you're as you're delivering it, and this goes back to feedback,
Yeah,
you want to get the response from the people that you are targeting for your content. Something that we have learned, it's an NLP principle, is the only meaning of any communication is the response you get.
you get it. Yeah,
And so you need to test and see how people are responding to what you put out there. Because we have this wonderful map in our heads that we think it's going to be XYZ. And then the comments that you get, it's like, well, didn't you mean ABC? And you're like, no. But again, if that's your target audience, if that's who you're trying to reach,
yeah,
then ABC is maybe what they need. Or maybe you need to cross map from ABC over to XYZ.
yeah,
So you gotta make sure that you are looking for the comments, looking for the feedback, and looking for the feedback that is not that lovely positive feedback that we all know and love,
yeah,
because positive feedback is great for making you feel really good. It's the 10, 15, 25% of people who give you the other feedback that you need to pay attention to.
So learn to deal with the unpleasant sensations in your body that you experience while you get that feedback,
Like I
but then,
said,
right? But then listen to it and how
yeah.
you can use it.
Yes, it's the different. It's separating the emotional response to feedback from the intellectual response of how can this help me make this better? How can
Yeah.
this help make this content better?
Yeah. Mikey from the Netherlands says, and after every step completed, celebrate. Yeah, we love celebration,
Yes, of
right?
course, of course. And it goes back to what we were saying to begin with, is the emotional state that you have while all of this is going on is absolutely critical. And
Yeah.
it's a really solid point. One of the most important things that I've ever seen. I've worked with a lot of authors who have gotten their books published, and it's interesting to watch the lack of celebration because they're on to the next thing. They're on to the, oh my gosh, I've got to, I've got to market that. I've got to go out there and market this thing, and the next syndrome. So yeah, great point.
So if you look at all your books,
Mhm.
and is there, or your projects, is there one that stands out? I'm sure you loved and you gave that 1,000% to everyone, but is there one that it was like, yeah, it's something about this one that I keep it so close to me, that you are so proud of?
Well, um, it's interesting. The one that actually comes to mind is my what I will call my biggest failure. And it was a book project that I was ghostwriting, and it was a science-based book. It was very and tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of research. Lots of scientific research on many different neuropsychology and just all kinds of things having to do with the brain, which I love. I really enjoy that kind of research. It was just absolutely so cool. Um, and I got overwhelmed. It was right after what's his name? Jonah Berger. I think it was Jonah Berger. There was a ghostwriter, a writer that had just gotten slammed for plagiarism in New York Times bestselling book that found out that he had misrepresented some stuff. And so I was bound and determined that every single fact, every single thing in this book was absolutely going to be it was going to be emotionally compelling, but it was going to have statistical and scientific evidence underlying every single bit of it. And as I say, I got overwhelmed. And it got to, I think, about the 10th or 11th chapter of a 12 chapter book. And I was months behind in delivering the product. And I got fired. The agent, and it was the nicest firing that I think I've ever had. I don't get fired very often, thank God, but it was the nicest firing I think I've ever had. And it was this wonderful editor for one of the major publishing houses in New York. And he wrote me an email and he said, "You've taken it this far. Now let somebody else take it over the finish line." And first of all, I will always remember his kindness and his graciousness to me. But in reading that book now, the amount of work that was put into that book, it really created something that was truly, truly beautiful. And it hit I think it hit number 12 on the New York Times science bestseller list, which is huge. It's still in print. The author actually has contacted me because he wants to write another book with me. I'm not quite sure why.
Wow.
But but that was probably one of the most profound experiences that I've had with a book, and it taught me an enormous
Yeah.
amount about both myself, but also about creativity. Is
Would you
that the
share one thing that you learned that about yourself and creativity?
Well, I learned that I can't do it all by myself, which is still a lesson I'm learning. Um, but what I did learn was that sometimes you just have to ship. And I learned that fear can hold you back from a lot of different things. I was, as I said, overwhelmed by I've got to get make sure that everything's documented. And that emotionally, it was emotionally constipating, shall we say. So that was a huge lesson for me, is that, sometimes it's just about getting it done. Sometimes it's just about sitting down and doing the work. Sometimes it's just about getting a draft out there and seeing what happens, because I was also being very perfectionist, and that is something that still shows up, but I've learned to let it go, and I've learned to let the let to make sure that the emotion of that does not stop me.
I have to ask you because there are so many people with perfectionist tendencies. So, what is the turning point for you to let go of perfectionism so that others can learn from you?
For me, it starts with awareness. Everything always starts with awareness, and it starts with the awareness of the feeling of perfectionism, that hold. I think of it as clenched hands. That's my metaphor for it. It's clenching. It's like I need to know more. I need to find more. I need to do more research. I need that more. And so when I recognize that, that's usually I go, okay, that's your signal to stop. That's your signal to stop. Take a breath, walk away, and come back and produce something. And usually if I do that, if I break the emotion, I walk away, I come back, and then it's like, okay, now let's just do the work. Do the work and
Good.
ship. Seth Godin says, I think it's Seth Godin. It's either Seth Godin or Steve Pressfield. Do the work and ship. Somebody probably who's watching knows it. Ship is probably
Ship.
the most important word in content creation. Ship.
Yes.
Get it
Ship
out there,
and
and
ship.
just be aware that you're going to have to revise as you go.
Oh, that was beautiful. Thank you. People love it. Love your openness and honesty. Priceless. And then this woman that is, I think, is the smartest mathematician that I know. It's in the world. She's in Brazil.
Mhm.
She says anything that you invested is not going to be lost. Is in Romania. So thank you so much. Is there anything else that I didn't ask you, and maybe you wanted me to ask, and you want to let us with?
No, not really. First of all, thank you for letting me run over time, which is,
I just love it because that's my. I,
that's my that's
I'm
my that's my
so happy
tendency.
that I'm so happy you took the this time to
Yeah. Well,
create this.
the main thing I would like to share is that I have a belief that everyone has something, a message that they have that could transform, if not the world, at least one other person. And we need to own that, first of all, but then we also need to make that a must, as you were saying. Or if we know somebody that we feel has that message, has that greatness, to do what we can to help them find that must for themselves, that reason for themselves that says this is something to be shared. When my dad was in the U.S. Navy, and he passed away in 2004. And by the way, today is the 70th my parents' 70th wedding anniversary. They've both passed on, but June 10th was their wedding
We
anniversary.
we
Perfect
do like
timing.
we do like
Yes,
this up.
yes, absolutely. But my dad, I discovered after he died and we were going through his papers that he had been on a journey on a ship to, I think, the Arctic. And he had kept a journal. He had written all about this particular trip.
Oh,
I
how beautiful.
never knew that he did that. And, I look at that and I was, part of me is going, damn, Dad, I wish I'd known that you'd done that. I would have talked to you about doing something with it. But, it doesn't matter. He had the expression. That was important for him. But I think that part of our job is if we've got that in ourselves, we need to get our content out there in an effective way.
Yeah.
But then two, if we know people, if we have people like your dad that we listen to and go, you've really got some wisdom, help them figure out a way that it becomes a must. Or
Yeah.
maybe become, like me, the ghostwriter, the inspiration, the amanuensis, big fat Latin word, which means somebody who writes
Yes,
down
yes,
stuff for
the
somebody
heart.
else, um, who is the person that captures the information for them.
Yeah.
Because if it's been inspired, it needs to be out there.
Yes. And I think it's the best way to close this, while not without mentioning Heidi Droscher from Denmark, who has missed listening to your wisdom, by the way. And Seth, who is blessed to have your wisdom here. Thank you. Thank you, Seth. And thank you, everybody. And from India, from
Thank
Brazil,
you.
from all over the place. Thank you so much. Vicki, I'm very grateful and I feel very satisfied and full after this experience. So, like, it's embracing this experience and then we let it go and we go forward to our life after we share this space together. And I feel very blessed to for this experience. Thank you so much. I hope
Thank
that
you.
in the future you will come again. It would be wonderful. And I wish you all the best in the next period and stay healthy and happy and create magic around you as you do all the time with
Thank
your
you.
great heart and brilliant mind.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. And have a wonderful evening or a wonderful day, wherever you are in the world. And I'll see you tomorrow. And Vicky, much love and all the best in sunny San Diego.
Thank you. Love
Thank you.
you.
Bye.